anytime we're able to point out the contradictions in the progressive Democrat narrative, that's what we want to do. And here's another opportunity where they shout, "We're for labor, we're pro-labor," while breaking strikes and throwing labor under the bus. And again, this article, maybe I should put it in. I'll put it in the description right now. Let's do that. So if you're looking to read this on your own, I will save it. And it's officially in the description box now. But let's read the article. I'll blow it up a little bit. AOC searching for new campaign manager after previous one blamed for Met Gala fiasco. This is going to be interesting. So I've read about half of it, and I always like to be surprised live in some parts, like whether it's a video or an article, so I can get my live reaction. And I've read about half. So this is written by Zach Everson, Forbes staff. It just says I'm a staff writer. And there goes the night that we're essentially talking about, the night where she attended the Met Gala. Where, you know, eat the rich. She spent, I think it was reported, I think it was $30,000 on an Eat the Rich dress that she hadn't even paid for. What do you think you could have did with $30,000? Could that have helped the community? You donate $30,000 to RBN and you'll be amazed to what we can do with it. Donate half of that. Donate a third. And see if we're now out feeding people, helping people pay bills, giving haircuts to the homeless. I mean, it's a different approach. But anyway, let's continue with the article. And I'll read the caption before I get to the article. The caption of the picture reads, Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leaves the 2021 Met Gala celebrating in America, a lexicon of fashion at the Met Gala at the Metropolis Museum of Arts on September 13, 2021 in New York. So let's read. And I'm going to just shorten it for AOC. Rep AOC is looking for a new campaign manager after her previous one was blamed for dropping the ball on payments related to her Met Gala appearance. So let's just stop there. In the first sentence, we find out, so she's basically saying, you're going to make payments, right? And her staff dropped the ball on making the payments. The staff who didn't wear the dress dropped the ball on payments for a dress that's not for her. That lapse led the House Ethics Office to find, quote, substantial reason to believe, end quote, the Congresswoman violated ethics laws by accepting impermissible gifts. In September 2021, the New York Democrat attended the Met Gala, famously wearing a white dress with "Tax the Rich" scrawled across the backside. That appearance led the nonpartisan Office of Congressional Ethics to launch an investigation. Its inquiry discovered that Ocasio-Cortez did not pay for her dress, her hairstyling, makeup, and other services until after the investigation was launched. 5 months after the gala. I wonder if the pseudo left, the NATO left, the boutique left is going to cover this story. Any guesses? They are. Ocasio or AOC told the investigators she planned to personally pay for those services and had authorized her campaign manager to coordinate payments with the vendors. According to a transcript of the interview, pause there. So AOC didn't have $30,000 in the bank. So AOC couldn't pay for the dress outright. So she puts herself in a financial situation where she has to make payments so she can go to a gala so she can say eat the rich. Anybody buying this story here? Who's buying this? Anyone? Please identify yourselves in the comments, if at all you're buying this story so far. Now I'm going to ask the question again later on when we get through some more of the article. And let's get back to that article. So I'm going to read this again. AOC told investigators she planned to personally pay for those services and had authorized her campaign manager to coordinate payments with the vendor, according to transcripts or a transcript of her interview. Let me see if I can make this larger. I was hoping that it spreads out this way, but it doesn't look like it's doing that. But anyway, let's do this then. Slightly change how we look so that more of the article can be seen. Let's do that. I got this from Nick. He does this. He does this framing a lot when reading articles. But let's continue. Oh, sorry, everybody. When I blew it up, it scrolled me back up there. So let's go back down to where I left off. It gets really melodramatic. She's the victim here. So again, I'm going to read it again. AOC told investigators she planned to personally pay for those services and had authorized her campaign manager to coordinate payments with vendors, according to a transcript of her interview. Quote, I continue to follow up on this thing because it was stressing me out. So she continued to follow up. But somehow it still wasn't paid until the investigation was launched. Who's buying this? Anybody buying this? And I genuinely did not know what had happened. Let's see. You know you didn't pay it. You know you owe the money. You know what happened. Ocasio-Cortez said, quote, I had continued to get this kind of holding pattern response from her campaign manager. Here we go in blaming the subordinate, blaming the employee, blaming the worker. The labor person, blaming the worker. You're asking the worker, what's going on with the payments, man? The money that I owed to somebody, what's up with that? And for 5 months, you as an employer are taking what now you are saying is an unacceptable response from your campaign manager, yet you accepted it for 5 months. I'm sorry, I said that. Quote, I just never, ever, ever would have allowed that to happen, knowing what I have learned. But that I wasn't privy to the invoice. Let me read that again. I kind of botched it. Quote, I just never, ever would have allowed that to happen, knowing what I have learned. You know, the reason why it feels like I messed up is because she's starting to enter her word salad zone because that grammatically is missing something there. I just never, ever, ever would have allowed that to happen knowing what I have learned. But that I wasn't privy to the invoice. The congresswoman said the campaign manager, who was still employed by AOC at the time of her interview in May 2022, pause. So everything is going along fine with you. You have no problems with your campaign manager responding with this, what you say, holding pattern. You had no problem with that for 5 months until the investigation happened and you had to blame somebody. The campaign manager, who was still employed by Ocasio-Cortez at the time of the interview in May 2022, provided investigators with a similar account. So the worker, okay, throw me under the bus so we can give cover to you. The campaign manager said she didn't pay for the dress. Listen to this bullshit right here. The campaign manager said she didn't pay for the dress as she didn't think the invoice was final. So, somebody's lying here. Because the campaign manager receives the invoice but thinks it's not final. Why isn't she conveying the subtotal? Like, I don't think it's final. Okay, this is the subtotal to AOC. Because she said she had no idea about the invoice. Why aren't you conveying that to her? If this story really happened. Why aren't you conveying that you have an invoice with a subtotal? Just made up lies. She didn't pay for the hairstylist until after it threatened to file a complaint with the New York City Office of Labor Policy and Standards for Workers because the bill fell off my radar and she didn't have access to the congressman's personal credit card. I mean, this is just nonsense. All of this right here. Completely unbelievable. You're sitting on an invoice for one thing. You know the amount for the hairdresser because it's been so long that they submitted to a government agency for non-payment. But none of this you're conveying to AOC is what they want us to believe here. Let's continue. Guess so. She didn't have access to the congressman's credit card. Why don't you call her and say, what's your credit card so I can make the payment? Because she so eagerly wanted to make the payment, remember? Is there a person that would read this and believe this story that they're giving? Overall, the campaign manager said other things kind of took precedence, like breaking strikes. Like voting for Hakeem Jeffries. Other things took precedence over paying your bills. the campaign manager's name is not included in the transcripts, but other exhibits included in the investigation report identify her as Rebecca Rodriguez. So she throws a woman of color under the bus, if that's the person's maiden name. Throws a woman of color under the bus. Quote, the staffer is no longer with the campaign, said communications director Lauren Hitt in a statement, declining to explain if the ethics investigation led to the split, mother. Forbes was unable to reach Rodriguez for comment. Of course not. Because she was told not to respond to nobody in this agreement where she agreed to be thrown under the bus to save AOC. Does that sum it up for people? That sums it up pretty much, right? AOC began looking for a new campaign manager on February 7th, according to the first date Google indexed the posting. Let me get my dates right here. So she made the posting in February to get a new campaign manager. May 22 was the interview she did. So let me see. Is it February of this year or last year? Responsibilities for the position, which pays $120,000 to $165,000 a year, include partnering with the candidate to design and oversee the campaign strategy, set and execute priorities, and manage a skilled team of staff, advisors, consultants, and volunteers in a community-focused, unconventional year-round campaign operation. Overseeing compliance is another responsibility. The ad does not mention that the duty may include ensuring AOC's hairstylist receives prompt payment. And here is the filing. Does it hang on a second, everybody. I'm looking for a date. Still don't see a date on it. But I would assume it's February of this year is when this posting was put up. She was interviewed in May. When was the Met Gala again? In September of 01. Yeah. Yeah, it seems pretty chronological. September of 01, Met Gala, she finds out she's getting an investigation. January-ish, fires, concocts a story, fires that employee, tells her to go underground, don't respond to anybody. May, she gets interviewed for this story and had all these months to concoct this story. All right, so just terrible how AOC is doing that. But again, just another instance, another another check in just multiple stories of how AOC and this whole progressive Democrat narrative have been selling out the working class. One, to even try to sell this as something that you're doing for the working class. Remember when she went, eat the riches on the dress, so that means something. This is what we're doing, I guess. But yeah, that I think we'll leave it there. Actually, you said that there was a Forbes may have had video on this. So let me see. Let me just quickly go to YouTube and see if Forbes have a video on this. While I'm pulling up the video, let's make sure we hit that like button. We got up to 285 people watching. So let's go to 275, 275 likes. Hit that like button to get to 275. All right, so now let's look and see where. Oh, Forbes. Guess it would be news. Forbes News, AOC. Yeah, let's just do that. See what comes. Okay, so let's filter this and go in order of upload date. And see. Okay, here we go. This looks like this was 13 days ago. Let's listen and what it says. Just in, the damning details of AOC's likely ethics violation per House Ethics Office. So this is most likely the video that Bryce referred to earlier. Let's watch a little bit of it, hopefully.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Forbes staff writer, Zach Everson.
Oh,
Zach, thank you for coming on today.
Yes.
Glad to be back, Brittany.
Zach, you're here to provide more updates on a story you've been following for a couple of months now, and that's the House Office of Congressional Ethics said that Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez likely violated ethics laws with her Met Gala appearance. We initially talked about the news as it broke, but what additional details can you provide?
Sure. So as you dig into the report that the Office of Congressional Ethics published, there are some pretty juicy / damning details in there. As we mentioned, they dinged her for the dress, hairstyling, makeup that she received when she went to the Met Gala in 2021, that famous Tax the Rich dress, and that she didn't pay for them until after the office launched its investigation about 5 months later. And now she claims that the intent was always to pay for it, and just the system broke down and she didn't get it done. But as we look into some of those details, the first one is regarding the dress that itself, where she was originally billed $1,300 for that dress as a rental. And this is from, Brother Veli's. It's a well-known brand. It's highly regarded. The designer Aurora James has been featured in Vogue. It's high quality work. She was charged $1,300 for it. Then a staffer spoke to somebody at the fashion design at Brother Veli's about the invoice. And the next day, a second invoice was sent, and the price was slashed to just $300. And the staffer did not remember what may have transpired to cause that. And Aurora James and other people at Brother Veli's did not comply with Office of Congressional Ethics request for information, to the point that the office has actually recommended that the House Ethics Panel, which has the investigation now, subpoenaed those people. So,
wow. So AOC has gotten those people at the Met Gala dress, where she got it, to participate in this cover-up of throwing up her employee under the bus. Because they're not responding. And the other thing that the article did not mention, that he mentions here, oh, I see Nick in the background. Whenever you're ready. What he mentions here, it initially was a rental for $1,300. The staffer calls them and gets it bumped down to $300, but somehow the staffer can't recall what was the reason why they did it. Like, this reeks, I should say, of a ethics violation cover-up, because now we have two people or two entities who aren't responding or is refusing to participate in the investigation, or at least the reporting of it. So let's continue to listen to what he says.
There's a $1,000 haircut on that dress. And, I think getting a dress for $300, getting that dress for a $300 rental seems well below market. Not my area of expertise, but I do our family's finances, and I see what Rent the Runway can cost every once in a while. And I think an Aurora James dress for $300 for a night is a pretty good deal.
I agree. I use a similar product, and that dress would not happen at a $300 rental fee. But can they get in trouble for not complying at all with this investigation? I know they are getting subpoenaed.
The House Ethics Panel, I don't know how much jurisdiction it has over fashion designers. It certainly has jurisdictions over members of the House, and even then, it doesn't seem to want to flex its muscle all that often. So there's a good chance we'll never find out what happens here if they even do subpoena them, because it is pretty much a black box over there.
And let's talk about the hair.
Well, this is the problem when you have corrupt people running ethics investigations. What's up, Nick? This is the problem when you have that, is that, they'll be reticent on pulling the trigger on something like this, because why are we going to do that? So that when they gain power, they're going to do that to us. So it's kind of like a washing of the bag. I'll wash your bag, you wash my bag. I won't take it too far with your investigation. Don't take it too far on us. But what's up, Nick? What's going on?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? I'm glad I was able to make it. I was hanging out with some family that was off today, so I had time. I saw like last 10-15 minutes of stream, so I wanted to join you. This is great coverage. Very, very embarrassing, very revealing about AOC. I was thinking about going live later tonight, but I'll be joining Glenn Greenwald on his Rumble show at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That's why I want to jump on with you, Gala.
Yeah.
So I do my RBN coverage, and then I'm gonna be on Glenn Greenwald show later. So that's gonna be hype, fam. That's gonna be hype. So let's go. Let's mix it up with.
You know the topic yet? Do you know what the topic is yet?
We're gonna roast Kamala Harris. So that's gonna be fun.
That's always good.
That's always fun. He's like, you want to eat? Like, you down to do that? I'm like, bro. I'm like, fam. I'm always down to roast Kamala Harris. We also gonna talk about Ukraine and the state of the left, that kind of stuff as well. Glenn, just like Jimmy's always fun. Always fun to do those shows. Always fun to do Lee Camp shows, Convo Couch. I love talking to these people who are actually serious anti-imperialists, serious about civil liberties and that kind of stuff. So should be fun. And I'm gonna watch a lot of this segment because I watched the last 15 minutes, but I didn't catch it from the beginning. So I'll let you. I'll let you do your thing. I'll let you do your thing. I'll be here.
Absolutely. So just recapping, like you said, you just saw the last 15 minutes. Just recapping with the article, but there is a little more information in this video. So let's listen to a couple more minutes before we close out and go to the next segment.
And makeup situation as well from the Met Gala.
Sure. So the hairstyling is also really interesting in that 5 months after the gala, a representative from the hairstylist threatened to file a complaint with New York City's Office of Labor Policy and Standards for Workers against AOC's campaign unless they paid them the next day, because they had gone 5 months without having paid for their haircut. I mean, again, a little bit different than how you or I operate. I know when I get my haircut, I swipe my credit card on the way out the door, say thank you, and they have their money, as opposed to waiting 5 months. By that point, I've already had my haircut 3 more times. So they were threatening to file a labor complaint against, AOC, which is not exactly the image that the labor-friendly image that the Congresswoman.
I had to come back for that one. I'm here. I can hear it. That's crazy. Wow. Oh my God.
A labor complaint. It was threatened to be filed. So I mean, I don't buy this. But I am trying to find a thread of believability in this story, and there's just simply not a thread. It sounds like to me so far like, she wanted to feel like a celebrity. You ever see the Real Husbands of Housewives episode where Chris Rock was on there, and Chris Rock was saying like, I'm a much bigger celebrity. I'm white famous, and you're black famous. This is what he was telling Kevin Hart, right? And then he would, so Chris Rock would go to stores and go to restaurants and not pay. He would just get up and walk away from the restaurant. Kevin Hart was like, "Hey, Chris, what the fuck you doing? We didn't pay for this. We didn't pay for that." He's like, "When you big like me, that's what you do." So Kevin Hart tried to do that. It didn't work for him. But the point being, is that she obviously thought I'm with the celebrities now. We don't pay for shit. We don't pay for haircuts or anything like that. They thought these people were gonna give them this stuff for free because they were, comp it because they're celebrities, or at least that's what she thought. And it's coming out that people are like, no, you owe us. We're gonna file a complaint with the labor board, which she could not have had happen. Just amazing.
Embarrassing.
Let's play it a little more. Let's see if we get some more tidbits. Now, I read the article. I know you missed that part, Nick, but this video has way more information in it than the article.
It presents.
Zach, like you said, usually when you get a service, you pay for it either immediately or you get on some sort of payment plan. Was this a failure on AOC's behalf to pay, or did the campaign think this was a sort of gift or borrowing situation?
No, they knew up front this was something they had to pay for, that they consulted ethics. They consulted outside ethics counsel on this, and they had said up front that they, in their response to this complaint, that they intended to pay it. It was just the system broke down. But again,
so let's clarify here. Let me clarify, because he does kind of muddle that situation. He's not saying they knew they were supposed to pay in the beginning. He's saying after they have retained an attorney after this investigation launch, this is the reason they're giving. That's what he's saying.
And I'm just shooting the shit here. I'm flowing this out here. Do you guys think this is one of the reasons why AOC don't even try to pretend to be a leftist anymore? You know how she's like full-fledged Democratic establishment shield now. And once again, I don't. This is a theory. Maybe she's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go pivot hard liberal because this story about to come out. And when this story come out, I'm gonna lose all my left credibility anyway. So I might as well do my pivot right now.
That's a good point.
Once again, I'm just going out there. That's just a theory.
That's a good point, because you got to think. If we think back, Nick, think back to the reaction of her just going.
Yeah.
And then now fast forward to the reaction of the story behind it. Yes, this would not have been a good situation, and this is not a good situation. But do you think the NATO left or the pseudo left or
they're not going to cover this?
Going to cover this?
They're not going to cover this. I'll be shocked. And you're our point man on this. You let us know, but I'll be shocked to see this coming out of David Doe, Mike Figueredo, TYT crowd at all. And if they do, shit, I wouldn't be surprised they attack and throw the staffers.
I was just about to say that.
And the Met Gala is probably the highest profile thing AOC has done other than being elected in the first place. And you'd think like, hey, did you remember to pay that bill for that dress? That seems like something you'd ask. I have the same thing. Like, hey, did you remember to pay for the kids' diving lessons? That sort of stuff comes up. And then just, I know she's a congressperson and has a lot more going on her plate than dealing with this kind of stuff. But
like what? Breaking strikes? Like what has she done? Voting for NATO? Like what? What other busy thing is
Chuck Schumer? She's gonna go to a
Schumer,
and then the anti-war activist is gonna call them out, and she's gonna take the side of Chuck Schumer over the anti-war activist. That is what AOC is busy doing.
She's responsible for it, and it's something that you think would stick in her memory and wouldn't have to take 5 months.
This is a payment that was missed that is in the ballpark of a couple grand, be it the dress, the hair, and the makeup. Is this a big deal in the scheme of ethics investigations?
Probably not.
What?
No. But I mean, ethics investigations almost always.
You got to think ethic investigation when you have war criminals, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so
right.
to corrupt people and corrupt Washington, you only took that, AOC, you know what I'm saying? Like Mendez, the other Democrat Mendez that got caught up in an ethical investigation, he's like, that's all you had was a measly $5,000. So
maybe about the little things. When Duncan Hunter got dinged for all of his travel, it was in tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, I believe, for misusing campaign funds. This is not a ton of money. It's very visible because you've got both AOC and the Met Gala involved, and it's a good headline. And
so this wasn't a lot of money. Then why is AOC waiting to make payments? This is why none of this story makes any sense, Nick, because what he's saying here is that the amount was very, very low, But in the article, AOC says she's been waiting for 5 months for her campaign manager to set up payments for a $300 rental.
Yes, yes, CJ.
Like it's not a believable story. And do you know the campaign manager can't be found? She's not returning any calls, not returning anything.
And she got fired, right?
Yes, and she got fired. So it doesn't make any sense. So let me read this quote again, and we can close this segment out. This is what AOC said. I continue to follow. I'm sorry, that's the second quote. Here's the first quote. Up here. Oh, I guess it is the first quote. I continue to follow up on this thing because it was stressing me out, and I genuinely did not know what had happened. I had continued to get this kind of holding pattern from her campaign manager. I just never, ever, ever would have allowed that to happen knowing what I have learned. But that I wasn't privy to the invoice. So we can close it here on this segment because AOC literally made this story up. I mean, it's so clear that she made this story up after the fact, and she threw her campaign manager under the bus who's not responding. So the campaign manager was willing. Maybe she set something up. Hey, here goes some cash. And also you'll set you up with a job or something like that in the future. As long as you keep quiet, don't respond to anybody. The people who rented her the dress don't want to cooperate with the investigation. So they're going to have to be subpoenaed. This smells and reeks of a cover-up of a small proportion, a small amount. But she knows, even if the small amount, what she was doing was not going to land well, especially.
I cannot emphasize enough. I cannot emphasize enough how bad this story is for AOC. And you're going to have the progressive media, the Bernie industrial complex, run defense by not covering it. You know how like there's like lies by omission? Yeah. It's going to be defense by omission, right? It's their way of manufacturing consent, painting the political picture. So there are a lot of people who follow these people who don't understand why I got all these criticism of Bernie AOC. They don't even understand it because they never not used to hearing it. And the reason why this is so bad for AOC is because think about the Met Gala embarrassment, how much shit she took for that. This is the last story AOC wants to drag on. Think about it. If you're AOC after the public slacking she took after the Met Gala appearance, you want that story to go away. You want that to be a news cycle. Now because of this scandal, now it's another news cycle. Now people talking about the Met Gala thing again. It's horrible for AOC. But there have been a lot of things that have been horrible for AOC, her votes, literally her public appearances defending Biden's State of the Union. Like, there's so many lows for AOC. It never stopped. That's why I am adversarial, and I have no patience for people who still apologize for AOC and Bernie. It's absolutely ridiculous.